Hello, it's your sewing bestie Ellen, and I am here to introduce a long-form video for sewing a Jedi outer robe. So this summer, I took on a project to create 15 Jedi robes for an annual Jedi event that takes place every June, not May 4th, and it's done for the neurodiverse community for teens and adults. So this annual party is organized by X Minds, or the Partnership for Extraordinary Minds, which is in Montgomery County, Maryland. And it's done in partnership with Slush and Crust Productions, which is a party planning organization, and they throw inclusive parties for the neurodiverse community, teens, and young adults. So I know Brian Lester from Slush and Crust Productions. I ran into him and he mentioned that he was aware of my YouTube channel and that because he knows I sew, he was going to ask me if I'd be interested in making the robes. And though I didn't really have the bandwidth for it, he said that he would order the robes from Amazon if I didn't provide them. That wasn't a threat, by the way. He said, no big deal, I can order them from Amazon. But like many of you out there, the environmental impact and the implication of getting those very inexpensive robes, they were $18 at the time with tax and shipping about $19. I really wanted to avoid the Amazon purchase. I really wanted to do it myself. So I did. With the help of a neighbor down the street, Zach, who came over, did some hemming, did some brainstorming with me. I was really happy to have a partner. I was also happy to have some people to help me keep the costs down. So let's spend a moment talking about the costs. If I were to order the 15 robes from Amazon, at the time with the robes being approximately $18, $19 with tax, it would have been about $270 total. I ended up charging $180, and this is how. The main source of materials was from neighbors who provided bed sheets. I asked neighbors if they had any solid colored bed sheets that I would be able to dye brown. I was able to source a lot of bedding from neighbors. I also had a collection of muslin fabric at home and a few of my own sheets. These robes are very large, and they take approximately 4 yards of fabric apiece. That would mean about 60 yards of fabric total for all 16 robes. Sorry, all 15 robes. I did make 16 because my daughter kept one that she really liked. So there were 15 robes that I sold, but 16 that I made. And something tells me I might not be done. So the main source of cost was the dye. I ordered a lot of RIT dye for the fabrics, and there were some things I needed to learn along the way. There are the natural fibers, like the cotton sheets, the cotton fabric, take to the dye much more easily than some of the synthetic fabrics. There's also a different type of dye, whether it's the RIT brand or another, that works better with man-made fabrics. There's also the dye fixative, which is sort of like a conditioning treatment that you put in at the end of the dye treatment to help the dye stay. So I spent approximately $75 on that. The next big cost was fabric. I ended up buying approximately 16 yards of fabric out of the 60. That means about 44 yards of fabric I did not buy. So I bought approximately 16 yards of fabric. I got them in the Remnant Room at G Street Fabrics, my local fabric store in Rockville, Maryland, where the remnant pieces are now $3.97 a yard. Some of the fabric that I got for a couple of the robes were already brown. So the two main costs were the dye and the fabric. There was also the pattern. So I needed pattern pieces to cut. I ended up getting a robe from Amazon to take apart and trace. That was approximately $18. Let's round it to put it to $19 because of tax. Otherwise, there was thread, and that was approximately $22. So if you put that all together and divide it by 15, each of the robes are approximately $12. There are a few ways that my robes differ from those from Amazon. Let's start with the fabric. The Amazon fabric is made with a type of fabric they refer to as uniform fabric. I've done a little bit of research on that, but I'm still unclear as to what exactly it is. If you think about a reusable grocery bag or a reusable bag you might get at a place like Barnes & Noble or a book fair, you'll think of something cloth, but with a little bit of roughness, a little bit abrasive, a little harsh, but it'll stand a couple of uses. That's sort of how the fabric felt from the Amazon robe that I purchased to take apart to make pattern pieces out of. The fabric and the thread itself was very stringy. So when I detached the arm from the front pieces from the back and the hood, there were a lot of clumps of not very soft thread, but something, think of burlap. Think of stringy burlap strings. They were sort of big lumpy balls of string that were floating around my office like little spiders. It was quite messy. So I actually ended up not even using the uniform pieces as pattern pieces. I ended up making pattern pieces out of muslin after tracing the Amazon arm, side, there was a left and a right side, the back, and the hood. In the tutorial, I'm going to also show you how to make a pocket. Most of the Jedi robes I made did not have a pocket, but the Jedi robe in this tutorial will. So there are only really 5 pieces to the Jedi robe, if you think about it. The hood, the arms, that's 2 pieces, the hood and the arms, the front, left, and right sides, mirror images of each other. The back, which is 1 piece, and the pockets, that's the bonus, and that's the 5th piece. I'm going to explain to you how I made the robe, and I'm going to make suggestions for where you might be able to find these pattern pieces if you don't have a Jedi pattern at home. I did purchase a digital pattern online before I ordered the Amazon robe that I ended up tracing. The digital pattern I ordered through Etsy. The pattern maker had a lot of great reviews, and there were many sizes included. The issue was, if I printed this off at home, I would have had 90 pattern pieces to tape together. I also had an AO file that I could get printed at Staples, but the cost estimate was kind of astronomical. I promised Brian Lester that I would meet the price of the Amazon robes or go below that. I was not going to exceed that price. So the robes are done. They have been delivered. The first Jedi event did occur. I do have some pictures of people in the robes, and I couldn't be happier. So I invite you to watch the sew along and to follow up with any questions, critiques, comments for how I can make it better, or if I can offer any clarifications. And may the Force be with you. I'd like to review with you the 5 pattern pieces that we will be using to make the Jedi robe. Many of these pieces you will be able to find from another pattern or from a different garment that you may already have at home. First is a hood. The Jedi robe comes with a nice big hood where the bottom runs the span of the shoulders in the back. It's a hood that you can put on and sort of block out the world if you want to. So if you see this hood is from a Vogue pattern. This is from pattern V8854 Vogue pattern. I'm sure I have a few patterns with hoods, but it looks like this. And when I cut this, I end up with 4 of these pieces, 2 mirrored sides. So 2 that look just like this, and 2 that will look just like this. If while you're cutting the hood fabric, if the fabric is folded in half and you put the hood pattern piece on, cut it twice, then you'll have 2 pieces from each side, 2 symmetrical pieces. Another piece that you probably have somewhere from another pattern is a pocket. If you don't have a pocket pattern, it's not very difficult to draw. It looks like a teardrop, half of a teardrop or a boob. This is from a Simplicity pattern, 1563, but a pocket's a pocket. If you're going to have a pocket on both sides, on the waist, you're going to do just like with the hood. You're going to have 4 pieces total, 2 mirrors of each side. Next will be the arm. Now I mentioned earlier that I had gotten an Amazon robe that I cut apart and I was going to trace the pieces. But because there was so much stringiness coming off of the fabric, it was very messy, very difficult to work with. I found this muslin, which is cotton fabric, very inexpensive, and I was able to just trace this, and I put some instruction on them. I was able to just use some marker, pen, and label these myself. So this is 1/2 of one of the arms. The curved part here goes on the shoulder. This ends up being a very nice big sleeve. You're going to cut, just like with the pocket in the hood, you're going to be cutting a total of 4 pieces of this, 2 that look like this, and 2 that look like this. If you have enough fabric, you can cut the sleeve on the fold so that you end up having just 2 pieces, 1 piece for each arm. Then when you fold the fabric together, you will only need to do 1 seam at the bottom of the arm. So we have a hood, we have the pocket, and we have the sleeves. Now this is the side of the robe. There's going to be a left side and a right side. They're the exact same pattern piece, just opposite, mirrored image of each other. Okay. So this here would be the neckline, the arm area. This is where it would connect to the back, right here at the shoulder, as well as here. And when it connects to the back, you're going to have a sleeve hole where you're going to then attach the arm. So you're going to have 2 of these. This is very long. Goes right to my feet. Now, this top piece is sort of your standard kind of bodice and then just, robe type pattern. So if you don't have a Jedi robe pattern at home, maybe you have a bathrobe, maybe someone has a dress, or there's a shirt that you can trace the shoulder part, the arm, and simply where the shirt might stop, measure to your ankle, perhaps, and create your own pattern piece. We're not going to get fancy with darts and other more tailored type tactics. This is going to be a big flowy robe. So if there's a little bit of extra fabric, if there's a little bit of extra flow, that's okay. That's why I like this as a beginner project, just like a caftan or a nightgown. It doesn't have to be perfect to feel perfect. The last piece is the back, and this is the biggest piece. Very similar to the front piece, the bodice, but it's a little bit bigger. This is 1/2 of the back. You'll see here the arm. And the back goes all the way down to my ankles. It goes actually all the way to my foot. So this is 1/2 of the back. So when you're cutting the fabric here, you'll have fabric folded in half. You'll have this long side, this long straight line right on the fold. You'll cut this, and then when you open up the fabric, you'll see those 2 symmetrical pieces attached unlike the left and the right side that need to be detached, because one will sit here and the other side will sit here and they'll be attached to the back. When you cut the back piece, you'll double up in the fabric and it'll be together just like a butterfly. If you have a bathrobe, even a sweater or a sweatshirt where you can trace the neckline, the shoulder, and the arm area, and then just, kind of just flows from there. It's really not super complicated. This is an easy way that you can make a robe. So prior to this, I showed you the 5 pattern pieces you would use if you were making a human-sized pattern. But because I made 16 human-sized robes this summer, I wanted to make a doll-sized robe. This would also help me to more easily show the pattern pieces, which are not as large as the human-sized are. So I just showed you Luciana in Molly's clothing and Molly in Luciana's clothing. Molly has offered to be my robe model. So here are the doll-sized pieces. This is the back on the left, and I have instructions on each of these that I wrote down for my own reference and just for practice. So this is the back side. This is going to go on the fabric fold. You're going to cut that and have one big piece. This is the side. So there's going to be a left and the right side. There are mirrored sides, and they're going to be 2 separate pieces. These will attach at the back. And of course, I'll demonstrate that. This is the pocket, and in the tiny instructions, I say that there will be 2 sets of mirrored pieces that are detached, so we'll end up with 4 separate pieces. Then we have the hood. Same thing with the pocket. You can cut it on the fold, so that you have 2 sets of mirrored pieces, but then you're going to cut those pieces apart, so you end up having 4 quarters. And then there's the arm as well, where you're going to either have 4 mirrored pieces, or if you have enough fabric, you can cut 2 large sleeve pieces and then just have 1 seam to sew at the bottom of the arm. So again, I'll demonstrate all of this, but I wanted to just have you with me while I was making the doll pattern pieces. All right, so I am going to cut the pattern pieces for Molly here. Molly is in Luciana's astronaut costume. She is going to be the Jedi. She's going to be the model. And Molly has agreed to use a pretty cool fabric. This is remnant fabric I got recently at G Street, and I think it will be very funky. The thing I like about it best is that there's a clear wrong side and right side. Wrong side, or inside, and this is the right side. That's something I struggled with a lot when I first learned to sew. It was deciding what's the wrong side, the right side, and often they look similar or the same. And this here, it's very clear what is the wrong and the right side. I'm going to cut our pattern pieces here. So here is the fold side, okay? And then over here, sort of off of the measuring table, are the selvages or the end pieces. That's important to know because a lot of what we're going to cut will be right on the fold. We have the sides. So I have instructions here that say cut 2 separate mirrored pieces. So I am going to I'm going to line up the long side here. Over here's the neck, shoulder, and arm part. So I'm going to line this up right here. I'm just going to clip it on. Next, we have the back. The back instruction is cut 1 on fold. So this part that's just straight, I'll put it here. And similarly, I will clip it. You know what? I'm going to move the fold just a bit. Okay, just adjust the fabric for a minute. Just because this is doll sized, so it's not going to use that much fabric. So it would be better if I actually made the fold right here. And then I can have the rest of that fabric kind of ready for hopefully a garment or a bag of some sort. This might make a cool bag. or something for the gym, or something for yoga, or something for school. Who knows? I feel like this is a versatile fabric here. All right, so let's do that again. We started with the sides, so we're going to put this flat part here, just because we can easily create the mirrored piece. One to the left, one to the right. The back, one folded piece here. We're going to cut on the fold 2 mirrored sides, so I think we can move this down. We're going to do this twice. Then we have the hood. We're going to do 2 mirrored sides. You know what? I think I'll do that next, because we'll be able to fold some of this over, and then same thing with the pocket. I'm going to use these scissors. These are my good fabric scissors, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it over here. The way the location of the fold was sort of now I know I usually put the fold on the other side. Maybe it's because I'm right-handed, but I'm not used to standing this way, so I sort of feel like I'm set everything up in an opposite way. Lesson learned. So what you see here is I'm cutting making sure this is laying flat and nice. I'm not going to rush through this. I'm going to cut this. What we need to do is to cut this part here. These are separated, the left side and the right side. Cool. This is the back. I turn these around to make it easier to cut. And make sure this is lined up nicely. And the way we have it here is the way the back will be. Watch this. One big back part. So mirrored sides, nothing about cutting it. Very good. Now onto the sleeves. We're going to do this twice. Cutting on the fold. First one, I'm going to unclip it. Got a large piece, just like with the back. This is going to be the sleeve. So watch this. Luciana will demonstrate. So the straight line, the flat part, will be by the wrist. This is the shoulder part. We'll sew the seam inside out, like this, with the right sides together and the wrong sides on the outside. So we'll stitch the seam together, and then when we take it right side out, you won't really see much of the stitching. So we'll do one more of these. After this, we'll just have the hood and the pocket to do. So 2 sets of sleeves, one for each arm, and only 1 seam needed to stitch. So each of these raw edges, as they call it, I'm going to sew it. Bring it inside out, or on inside out, as my son says, and then we'll have a great sleeve. Onto the pocket and hood. I do the same thing that we do with the pocket that we do with the hood, meaning that we need 4 quarters. To the left, 2 sides to the right. We're going to have to detach those sides. So unlike the back or the sleeves, I want to detach. I'm going to sew these back together. Let me show you what I mean. It'll be just like we did for the sides. This is going to be one of the pockets. Let's do one more. We end up actually sewing the pockets onto the outside, the right side of the garment, the back and the sides, and then the garments together, tuck in the pockets. And when you put your hand in the pockets, if you pull the pockets out to show somebody, you'll see this pattern. The wrong side will be on the inside. This will be the other pocket. So we've got 2 pockets. Last but not least is the hood. I'm going to cut this twice and cut them apart, detach them, and we're going to have 4 quarters. But I've noticed that a lot of the hoods that I've bought, they are sewn together at the seam, and I realized that, well, you may not have to do that. I think it gives it a little bit more shape, a little bit more structure, so I'm going to do that as well. That's what I ended up doing with all my Jedi robe. And line it up here, halfway. I have a million things to do with the rest of this fabric, so I'm going to put this back in my closet. And now, let's just do a quick inventory for parts of a hood. I'm not going to do anything with the pockets quite yet. Hang in their pockets. We've got the sleeve, 2 sleeves. This little curvy part that goes in the shoulder. So this is the wrist part. We have the back of the robe. And we have the 2 sides. Let's see how many things we have in total now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Plus 4 is 12, 13. So we've got lucky 13 pieces. We'll assemble this next. Right, so when we left off, we had our pieces ready. Let's start to assemble them. Let's start with the pockets. Now, in the real world setting, you are going to have marks, notations, where you're going to line certain things up, like the pockets. I'm being a little bit casual here, not showing all the marks and stuff, just because I want you to get the idea for how this robe is to be made. The pockets is one area where we're actually going to sew this on the outside of the right side of the fabric. Then it will go inwards. Let's go ahead and do that. This is the only thing we're going to do to the back at the moment. Here are the sides. See how the arms kind of line up here. That's where we're going to want to put the other part of the pocket. And this is where the garment will match. I'm going to attach it here. Leave room to put the sleeve here. And then as we start to sew down here, we're going to sew on those pockets. See how these line up? They're opposite sides. So there's one pocket on the back side, one pocket on the side, and then they'll come together. We also, of course, attach this at the shoulder. Let's finish up with the pockets. So we have 4 quarters, 1 on each of the sides, and 1 on each side of the back. For the arms, these are going to go inside out. This is sort of the curvy area. They'll go in the shoulder, the wrist area. The wrist will come out here. Boop. I'm going to go ahead and clip this. The hood is a couple step process. A couple things to be mindful of. Get a fresh needle. Get the appropriate needle. If you're using a very thick fabric, make sure you're using a needle that is made for a thick fabric. If it's stretchy or jersey, get an appropriate needle for that. Quick Google search will figure everything out for you. The sleeves, I'm just going to get this bottom part of the arm sleeve together. And then I'm going to get these pockets on. Once that's done, we'll return. We'll get the back and the sides attached at the shoulders, and then down from the arm, around the pockets, all the way down to the ankles. And then we have a couple more steps with the hood. We're going to attach the sleeves, and we'll almost be done. So I don't have a fabric that frays. I'm not going to need to hem this on the sides or the bottom, just the type of fabric I'm working with. If you're working with something that might fray, that has a raw edge that's not going to do well without being hemmed, you will at the very end need to hem the bottom and the sides to remove all those raw edges. See you soon. Let's turn these fabric pieces into a robe. So as a reminder, I've made over a dozen Jedi robes this year, and I decided that for this demo, a doll-size tutorial would be appropriate. This way we can get a close-up of all of the pieces right here from my cutting table. Thank you again to Molly, my American Girl doll, who will model this robe for us. If you look at the top of this screen, you might see her hand poking out. To begin, here's an overview of the pattern pieces that we have. So we have the 4 hood pieces at the top. We've got 4 pocket pieces, which are already kind of aligned with the sides and the back of the robe. We've got 2 sleeves, 2 sides, and 1 back. While I've elected to show the pieces to assemble in a specific order, you can switch things up where it makes sense. There are no hard and fast rules here. I've just created a high-level overview for the robe pieces. Let's get started with the pockets. We're going to pin or clip the pocket pieces to the outside or the right side of the sides and back of the robe, and we're going to stitch the pocket piece to the sides and the back. With the sides and back of the robe lined up, right sides outside, you can see that beautiful pattern. You'll see each pocket part, or actually it's a quarter, with the wrong side or inside facing out. As you can see, the white side of the pocket is showing. The right and left sides, you're going to either pin or clip on each pocket quarter with its matching partner on the back. You'll see how I've done this on the left and right sides. So for now, you'll stitch the end of the pocket, the straight edge, not the curvy part yet. When you finish this part, you'll have quarters in place on the sides and on the back. Now on to the sleeves. I will give an overview of the instructions and then I will show you what I mean. So we're going to turn the sleeve pieces inside out, meaning wrong sides on the outsides, the right sides inside. We're going to pin or clip along the sleeve, that long end, and stitch the seam to make that cylinder shape of the sleeve. When the robe is ready, with the sides and the back together, and we have an armhole ready, we're going to pin or clip the curved side of the sleeve into the armhole at the wrong sides, and then we're going to stitch those sleeves in. That's one of our final steps. I cut 1 large piece of fabric per sleeve. Thus, the only thing I need to do is to fold the sleeve in half, wrong sides on the outside, and sew. In other words, I take the 2 raw edges of the fabric and stitch up 1 seam. You see, I've already done this, so I'm going to turn this right side out so you can see the fabric design. Later, we'll attach this to the armhole. You'll note the flat end of the sleeve is where the wrist goes. The curvy part on the opposite end of the sleeves attaches well to the armhole, which will come together when we stitch the sides to the back of the robe. I will show you from the right side where the sleeves will line up. Now onto the hood. So you're going to have 4 quarters, 4 hood pieces. You're going to sew 2 pieces together, right sides facing at the curve, clip, pin, and sew just at the curve, and repeat. So you'll do that twice. At that point, you'll have 2 halves. You're going to line up those 2 halves, right sides facing, pin, clip, and sew almost all the way around. So you have what looks like a wonton or a pita pocket. Leave a little bit unstitched so that you are able to turn the hood right side out, at which point you can then complete the stitching. And when ready, the final step in my book is to attach the hood to the robe. Here you'll see the 4 quarters of the hood, wrong side and then right side as you see. You'll want to put 2 quarters together, right sides together, pin or clip at the curve and sew. Once you've sewn, you'll have 2 halves that you'll once again clip or pin together, right sides together. You'll stitch around the entire part, just leaving, I would say, less than an inch or 2 centimeters, so you can turn the fabric right side out, completing the hood by stitching that part up. Later, we will attach that to the robe. Here, you'll see an actual full-size hood attached to a Jedi robe. This is quite large and is stitched across the entire top of the robe, across the sides and back. And lastly, the back and sides. So we're going to pin or clip the sides to the back at the shoulder and top of arm, and then stitch that together. Once we've done that, we're basically going to pin and clip and then stitch all the way down. So you're going to want to start from the bottom of the arm to the top of the pocket. At that point, you're going to want to sew the pockets, the curvy parts, so that they are attached, thus attaching the back and sides. And then from the bottom of the pocket to the bottom of the robe, all the way to the ankles or the foot. So here I'm putting the sides on the back, right sides facing, so I can then pin or clip the shoulders together and sew. At this point, I'm clipping the bottom of the arm, that's where the armhole will end, to the top of the pocket. Then I'll finally sew the curvy parts of the pockets together, so the pocket piece from the side and back will attach and will resemble a pocket. Then you'll sew from the pocket bottom all the way to the bottom of the robe. Let's take a moment to focus in on the curve, the outer curve of the pocket quarters that will be sewn together to become pocket halves or a whole pocket. I know that doesn't make fractional sense, but I think you get the picture. So again, we'll take this to the machine and we will sew these parts together so that the sides and backs are attached, leaving room for the armholes and pockets. Here you will see I have the sides and back fully attached, which means I just have the hood and sleeves to go. I'm checking out my armholes up top and I'm checking out my pockets. So I'm kind of pushing them outwards and you can see that the pattern of the inside of the pocket lines up with the pattern of the robe. Let's go ahead and attach our sleeves. Here we have the inside or wrong side of the robe and we have one of the sleeves, and as you can see I'm holding the wrong side. What you're seeing now is the curved part and at the bottom is the wrist part. So the curved part is where I will attach the armhole, and you can clip it, you can pin it. I tend to often get this wrong at first, so pin, clip, even just baste, which is sewing at a really large stitch so that you can undo it if there's an issue. That way you can pull the sleeve out, see if you did it right, and if you did it wrong, it'll be easy to take out. Just be willing to make some mistakes and learn from them. Once you've gotten the first sleeve in correctly, move on to the second one. Pull them right side out. Just make sure that the right side or outside of the sleeve is on the outside when you pull it out and the wrong side is on the inside. Lastly, we're going to want to attach that hood. So I showed in the video earlier that the life-size Jedi hood was much larger and spanned the sides and back. The hood that I made for Molly is a bit smaller and I stitched it only along the back. All other instruction is the same from doll to human size. So with the hood, you can see that the bottom part is lined right up to the top of the robe. And I simply attached the bottom of the hood, which is already stitched together, to the top of the back. So hood to right side of robe. I did either a zigzag stitch or an overlocker and I left it just like that. There was one seam that you could see, although with the hood being solid brown, I don't think it's a big deal. You can easily remedy this by using a little bit of bias tape. There's even some iron-on bias tape, really easy to use. Or in the same way you might fold something over twice, like if you're making a cloth napkin, you can play around with folding fabric under twice to hide any sign of seam. I did not do that when I made the robes, but I invite you to play around and see what works for you. Ah, Molly. She's got a fantastic robe, and we thank her so much for modeling the back, the hood, the sleeves. I am very pleased with. Maybe I'd add a little bit more width to the sides, but overall, I'm so pleased, and I thank you for watching the tutorial. Stick around and I will show you some of the life-size robes in action.